You know, October is always a time of spooks, a time of creeps and creatures. Basically, we think of like Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, the skeleton with the guns. But think about the most terrifying thing within the realm of monsters. What's the most scariest thing? The mind of people. See, people can be the utmost good, or people can be the downright evil. It's a terrifying thought that exists within the mind of men and women everywhere. Basically, the human race is its own worst enemy. Sometimes people can have the utmost good, but at the same time, it can be that little glimpse, that little flicker of fire that would then burn within them that transforms them into the most terrifying being on the planet Earth. This is a story of one such man, a man who was like no other, a man who would glimpse between the two phases, between a man and between a monster. He's torn in between. Yet the saddest part is he created sort of a persona, so to speak, that he could live in between, so he could feel like he was safe. But what in fact that this man is in fact his own worst enemy. Hello and welcome to Lazyween. Today, for a lazy review, I picked out a cult classic horror film from the mind of Alfred Hitchcock, and this is the cult classic film known as Greetings, golden goblins, and my universe, and my nerdy, and welcome back to another Lazy Win installment. Today I'm taking a look at a film that I kind of have never seen. I know the references, I know the dramatic sting from it, but I have never officially have ever seen Alfred Hitchcock's original cult classic masterpiece from 1960, which was known as Psycho. I've never seen it. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I know that it's one of the best basically horror film to ever come from the mind of Alfred Hitchcock. So this is just my honest thoughts and opinions on the film. I'm gonna give you the good, the bad, and also some fun facts to involve with the film. And I have to say that I am going to be the first and foremost to tell you that this film is without a doubt indeed worthy of a masterpiece or cult classic, and especially since they come from the mind of Alfred Hitchcock, who is one of the most classic of cinematic masterpiece directors, and I gotta hand it to you that this film is without a doubt one of the greatest. So, Alfred Hitchcock, I'm pretty sure he needs no introduction. He's one of the greatest movie directors that ever lived, and of course, he has his movies that speak all for him, such as like North by Northwest, Vertigo, The Birds, and of course, without further ado, Psycho, which was probably the film that probably launched him and put him on the map, and I have to say that I really did, in fact, like Psycho. Psycho is a terrific look between what goes on within the mind of people, that people can become their own worst enemies and people can commit the worst of crime and the worst of sins. I'm pretty sure that this film doesn't need no introduction, but this holds up as one of the best horror films or psychological horror films that I've ever seen to this date. So, is this one of my favorite horror films that I ended up discovering, or do I think that it's had to dug out and let it be like a rotten corpse sitting in Mrs. Bates' place? Well, go grab your favorite corpse or go grab some snacks because we're gonna be here a while. This is my honest review of Psycho. So, I do have a fun fact to tell you before I actually get into the film. Believe it or not, the film was based on a book, and the movie screenwriter did have a little bit of a distaste with Alfred Hitchcock when Hitchcock presented to him who his actor was going to be playing Norman Bates, who was Anthony Perkins. The writer behind the film did not like Perkins since he felt like Perkins did not match the Norman Bates that was in the actual book Psycho. Norman Bates in the book Psycho, from what I've heard, he's overweight, he wears glasses, and he deals with the multiple personality disorder that I'll talk about later, and why I think that this twist was kind of cool, for the most part. But yet, believe it or not, the writer did not like Anthony Perkins portraying Norman Bates, Which I think that maybe after he found out how famous that this movie became, perhaps the writer maybe looked at Anthony a little bit more and a little bit more pleasant. But this film or turn of events, it kind of starts out basically not like you expect. It actually starts out not in October but in December. So it skipped over a month apparently. So it skipped over a few months apparently. But we do actually get introduced into our, well, how can I say this nicely? She's not main girl. Hmm. First victim, we'll call her first victim, and this is Merlin, who is played by Janet Leigh, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh. So we find out that Marion actually is a married woman, but she's cheating on her husband with another man, a man by the name of Samuel Loomis. At her job, she talked to one of Alfred Hitchcock's daughters, Patricia, and actually talking to her about the job and about what's been going on for both of their lives. But the turn of event, or the twist of the movie, is in fact when a client comes in and he offers them to give them $40,000 in cash money.
I never carry more than I can afford to lose. Count 'em.
I declare.
I don't. That's how I get to keep it.
But it's here where Merlin actually formulates a plan. See, no one in their right fucking mind, without actually writing it in like a check, but no one in their right mind fucking handles $40,000 in cash over to somebody. So Marilyn formulates a plan. She's going to steal the money. She's going to go to her boyfriend Samuel Loomis, and she's going to basically stay with him for the rest of her life because it's assumed that maybe that she's going to divorce her husband and maybe and or possibly kill said husband. Yeah, it's never really established in the film. I just kind of like to play on it, on being like dark and terrifying and whatnot. But maybe, perhaps, she does want to kill her husband. Maybe it can be like, like Tale from the Crypt or one of the EC comics of a psychological horror. You don't know what's going on. But speaking of psychological horror, I love the fact that when Merlin steals the money, when she steals the $40,000, in her mind, she starts to play out these scenarios. She starts to imagine how it will go. But then her mind starts to play tricks on her, and Alfred Hitchcock did a great job of portraying this. You see, after she leaves her job, Marilyn starts to think, like, what if her boss actually saw her leave? What if he's gonna go back there? What if he's gonna tell the owner that she stole the money? Which leads into, by chance or by accident, a run-in with a young police officer who Marilyn had to hide the money from because she believes her boss called the police on her. This, however, makes her more paranoid when she goes to a used car dealership, or just a car dealership, and she ends up buying a new car for just $700. This gets Merlin thinking and that I got away with it. They'll never know that I committed the crime and stole the $40,000. They'll never suspect me.
It must be some kind of a mystery. I can't. You check with the bank, no? They never laid eyes on her, no? You still trust him? Hot creeper.
By the way, something I've noticed when I was actually watching this, the second time after the first time, I was like, I kind of noticed something that was really cool. That Janet Leigh, the way that she smiles, while she's driving in the car, going, "Yeah, I got away with this." That little like smug smile that she does, is actually echoed later with the infamous Anthony Perkins smile that he does as Norman Bates, which I actually did actually find out. I'm like, that kind of is a reference. That, deep down inside, that she was going, I got away with it. And I kind of think that, but I'll talk about it later, that deep down inside, Norman Bates was kind of like, I got away with this. They'll never suspect a thing. Kind of like that kind of attitude, like, I got away with it. But let's talk about the pretty much true star of this and his amazing and stellar performance as a man who is similarly broken, but the way that Anthony Perkins does this role, I think, is what makes him all the more famous. So let's talk about Anthony Perkins and his role in this movie as Norman Bates, because Anthony was a master at portraying Norman. Miriam finds a place, known only as the Bates Motel, where she finds a nice young man there. A nice young man who is by the name Norman, played famously by Anthony Perkins. Perkins stays right in the middle with his act at being Norman Bates. He never goes over and he never goes under. He plays a character just right where we want him.
I hate the look of beasts when they're stuffed. You know, foxes and chimps. Some people even stuff dogs and cats, but I can't do that.
The conversation, or dinner conversation, goes rather well until Miriam brings up Norman's mother, which makes Norman both paranoid but also concerned. Which leads into what we know about Norman. He's different. He's a little bit of the abnormal side, and he even has his own personal people to look at other women. See, Norman's like a child, so he acts in a childish manner, so looking in on women and not trying to be a pervert, but yet at the same time kind of stepping over his boundaries is a very nice touch. Which leads into the most famous shot of the movie, the shower stabbing scene. And boy, do I have a fun fact to tell you about the shower stabbing scene. Fun fact about this scene, which a lot of people probably could have guessed, but a lot of people might not know, so I'm going to share this information. See, while shooting this scene, and especially where they were, Alfred Hitchcock didn't want to use color, he wanted to use black and white, make it more stylish, kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, To Kill a Mockingbird, or even the original Godzilla. I can understand and I admire that, or even Martin Scorsese's Cut His Back Here, Raging Bull. I understand that makes the film more stylized for its own taste, which is nice. So he wanted something that was thick, but would look like blood on camera. But he didn't really have anything in his sort of speak acquire. That is until one of his daughters walks on set holding a cup of chocolate milk and drinking it. Hitchcock got the idea. Let's use Hershey's chocolate syrup. And the rest was history. If it wasn't for Hitchcock's little daughter, or one of his daughters, he never probably would have been able to film what he wanted. So it was a nice little touch in being with that. If it wasn't for chocolate milk, of all things, he probably would have never gotten the idea. So yes, afterwards, for both Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins, they had Hershey's chocolate syrup on themselves. You know, that's just like a big freaking food mess that you have to clean up now, right? But it stuck so famously, and it was referenced more famously than all in Looney Tunes Back in Action, where a woman walked in on Bugs Bunny while he was taking a shower, and the Psycho theme played, and he was pouring Hershey's chocolate syrup down the shower drain. So that kind of gave you a little hint. So I wanted to give you a little bit more of a backstory that. So if it wasn't for Alfred Hitchcock's daughter, then he probably would have never been able to film that said scene. It's kind of like a nice touch and a nice nod that you were able to see in this. So Alfred Hitchcock is a master at misdirection, which if I don't know if you could tell, but Janet Leigh's, I guess you could say, underwear changed throughout the film. At first it was white and then it was black. Why? I like to think that at first it white, representing that she was pure, she was a good person. Yes, she committed a sin of adultery while she was married, but she was still a pure, innocent woman. But then by the end of the day, she was sinful. She committed a sin. She stole money. And yet, while she was thinking about going back against her word, she still went with the sin. But later on, even though she wanted to go back and return the money, go back to Arizona, she still was dressed in black. So it's kind of a nice nod that maybe perhaps deep down inside she wasn't going to go back to Arizona. Maybe she just lied to Norman to throw him off. Because admit it, if you saw somebody carrying that much money, you'd probably have some evil intentions too. which when we come back to the film, we're not with our main character anymore. So Alfred Hitchcock redirects it and makes our main character both Samuel Loomis and also Lila. And yes, I know that a lot of people are going to tell me, I already know, John Carpenter is a big fan of Psycho, so when he made Halloween, he took a lot of inspiration from Psycho, such as the kitchen knife and, yes, the name of Dr. Samuel Loomis. Yeah, how did you not think that I was going to put this together even though I've never seen the original Halloween? Maybe I should not have mentioned that to people, but back on board, we're going to meet up with Lila and Sam. Lila, Marion's sister, ends up getting concerned that she hasn't seen her sister for a while, so she starts going around and asking people like, who have seen my sister and where would my sister go? Both Lila and Sam admit that they know that Marion took the money and that she ran with the money thanks to Detective Arbogast in the movie, but then they end up trying to think like, where would Marion go? That is until they had a run-in with the sheriff, who ends up telling them the truth, a little bit about Norman that I'll come back to in just a little teensy-weensy while. Which had Marion and Sam going to the Bates Motel to try to figure out this mystery for themselves and try to figure out what exactly happened to Marion during her adventure. That isn't until Marion figures out the biggest mystery behind the whole entire movie of who was the woman in the bed and in the chair the entire time. Yeah, that's how I felt the first time when I first saw this movie and first saw Mrs. Bates. Yeah, I kinda screamed myself. But why is Norman having her clothing? Why did Norman dress up as his mother? Why is this happening? Well, at first, this big long explanation that I'm not going to get into, I'm just going to summarize it. At first, the detectives, because they're all sitting in a room together after the incident happened, they end up finding out that Norman, they didn't, well, they do say the word, but at first they were suggesting that Norman was in fact a transvestite because he was dressing in woman's clothing. To which the detective says that's not the case with Norman. In fact, he is not a transvestite at all. It is without a doubt that Norman is in fact has multiple personality disorder. This is because Norman, at a young age, killed his own mother and her mother's boyfriend. So yes, you might as well say that Norman suffered from multiple personality disorders because he created a personality that is not has any name, it's just simply and entirely known as Mother. In fact, they reference her as just Mother. She doesn't have a name, she's not called Mrs. Bates, she doesn't have any type of name. It is without a doubt that this woman is just entirely and endowed the name of Mother. So she kind of feels like that Norman had gone through a split personality, and a lot of people who go through tremendous trauma can sometimes replicate and become a different personality. They said that it was so good, in fact, that Norman's voice could be thrown so that he could voice his own mother, and that she could voice it, and that he can throw his own voice. Yeah, kinda seems like you couldn't see that one coming straight out from a mile away. It's just a simple case of, you know, the multiple personality disorder, such as like Batman villain ventriloquist, for example. Yeah, we just have a case of the multiple personality disorders around here. Nothing of the abnormal or anything. Nah.
Big Bad Heart.
Speaking. To say what you won't, to do what you can.
But after all of that said and done, we are believed that Norman is in fact was behind it the whole time, or that his mom. She tried to play the I'm so innocent I wouldn't even hurt a fly, and Norman sinisterly smiles at the viewers, knowing something deep inside. Psycho would become a hit with Alfred Hitchcock, would become a phenomenal horror film that still stands out to this day and is still referenced in a bunch of movies today, and even highlighted John Carpenter's starting career with Halloween. Psycho was amazing in that it still holds up and stands out to viewers even still to this day, both young and old. I know for a fact that I did like the film, but there were a few things I disliked with it, such as, for example, the very long explanation at the ending, which I really didn't like. I even didn't like the throwaway character of Detective Arbogast. I felt like we should have had him just a little bit longer in the film so we could have gotten used to him. And with Norman being different, I wish that we as the viewers could have seen that instead of the movie going, yes, let's just have an explanation dump or an exposition dump on the audience right at the end of it. There we go, a nice big exposition dump at the end of it. But Psycho is great. Anthony Perkins was basically the highlight of the film, and Janet Leigh's performance was wonderful and great, and especially since her daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis, all these years later, is still honoring her mother's legacy, even took a shower in a very similar format of her mother's infamous picture that you can find in the version of Psycho. So it's just a masterclass creation by the one and only Alfred Hitchcock, and it's a film that still holds up to this day, that had a remake in 2003 that didn't do what it intended to do. Psycho is great. It's different. It's abnormal, but it's delightfully abnormal for the bunch of it. I don't think that I can give it a basically Funko Pop rating because I don't think that one would deserve it and have its high regard rating. But I think I'll try. With that out of the way, Psycho is a standalone thing. While it looked different, it what it set out to be, a horror film. And again, it's different, it's unique, but it's something that we deserve nowadays. And that's why my Funko Pop rating of Psycho is going to have to be a Megazord. So thank you everybody so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me at Twitter with a link in the description down below. And be sure to stay tuned for more Lazyween. Next time, I think it's about due time, I talk about the experience someone had with a killer Hot Wheel. Kinda, sort of. So join me next time as we'll be taking a look at an evil car. It sounds more ridiculous than it probably should be. You can probably guess what movie I'm reviewing next on Monday. But thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Join me at Twitter. And as always, happy Lazyween. I've been with Universe, I've been waiting nerdy. Keep your on, and as always, stay spooky.